Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is day 3 of the Black Women Photographers Summit. As you can see, we've been back to back to back this morning. So we thank you for coming back to see our next guest. We want to shout out first our sponsor, Adobe Photoshop Lightroom. Please make sure you are using that hashtag to enter into the giveaway to be a part of these conversations. We want to make sure we're helping you along the way. I'm your host, Chrissy, by the way. I'm a portrait photographer based in LA currently, and I'm here with an illustrious guest. We have Kyra Knox with us. Kyra, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And shout out to everyone that's watching right now.
Yeah, shout out to everyone that's watching. Kyra, with everybody else, we've been starting at the beginning, but you're a busy woman. So that you was just at the NAACP yesterday on another panel, and we got to start with the today of things. Please
Yeah.
tell us how that went. I'm gonna share our screen so we can just see what Kyra was doing yesterday while she explains it.
So man, when the NAACP calls, you don't say no, right?
Pick up and you go.
So yeah, the NAACP, they came to Philadelphia. And wow, I mean, I was on a panel with the legend, Scott, who is a director for the Jeffersons, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I mean, I could keep going on. And so I was on that panel, and then I was also on a panel that was very important to me about advocacy and social consciousness. So it was an experience that I will never, ever, ever forget, ever. So that was my day yesterday.
This is really beautiful. Thank you for taking the time. Most of y'all don't know, but Kyra had a whole different day, and she was like, "The NAACP call, y'all. We got to figure this out." And so we So thank you again. Okay, now that we're at today, we can go back a little bit into the middle of your journey because naturally, of course, it's a long one. We work at our creative journey our whole life. So can you please tell the people a little bit about you and being a filmmaker and a director?
A little bit about me. Okay, so fun fact. I quit my corporate job 5.5 years ago to follow my dreams of being a filmmaker. And now I'm 40, and I am fortunate to be able to direct and produce full time. This is how I make a living. So following my dreams have really, really paid off. But I started out as a young kid, 6 years old, at the Freedom Theater. I went to Performing Arts High School, same high school that Jasmine Sullivan, The Roots, all of them went to. Then from there, I didn't go straight to college. I actually had the opportunity to perform off Broadway in New York.
Wow.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. We won the 20. Now I'm about to age myself here. Yeah, we won the 2003 Oppenheimer Award for Best Original Play. And that was when I was 19. Yes, yes, yes. So I've been in the arts for a long time. But then my grandfather, he passed away right before that play went up, and then I quit for 10 years. And then it wasn't until I got engaged that I felt like something was missing. I know that sounds horrible to say. I love my husband, y'all, by the way. Um, but it was the arts that was missing in my life. And so I slowly started venturing back into it as I'm working my corporate job. I'm traveling to New York, back with my acting coach. I ended up writing my own one-woman show. That got into the United Solo One Man, One Woman show, and I got to perform that on Theater Row. But then around that time, an old friend of mine was like, Kyra, I'm producing my short film. You're so organized. Can you be our producer? Well, what do a producer do? I didn't go to film school, didn't do any of that. So I actually took any of my Philly folks. I took a $70 course at Philly Camp, which is a nonprofit, and it was how to be a producer. Um, and then I just started shadowing people that were really in the business. One day, my husband came home. I was crying on the couch. He said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Can I quit my job to follow my dreams?" He said, "Give me 90 days." And I walked into that corporate office the next day and I gave them my 90 days notice. And here I am now talking to you. So,
Oh, first of all, shout out to your husband. He said,
right?
"Yeah, I got you." I love that. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad that that's your experience. You said you basically restarted around the age of 28, 29, figuring it out about like getting back into your creative journey. I
Mhm.
love that. And then you being 40 now, I think a lot of creative people get worried about being too old for something. And let me just say, like, I'm 31. Like, what do you mean too old? Like, 30 is not the end of your
No.
life. Like, and in that same vein, you, in a way, restarted your life at 30. Can you tell us a little bit about like that experience of starting your life a little later, in this creative life and becoming a full-time filmmaker?
Oh man, when I quit my job at 34, I had a lot of negativity behind me. And so did my husband. I mean, people had the nerve to say to my husband, "You're gonna let Kyra quit her job." First of all, let. I might
What?
be married, but like no one is the boss of me.
Right.
And it was just very negative. People didn't think that I could make it. People were saying, "Oh, you need to settle down. You need to chill out with this hobby. You need to have a kid." But what I did was I kept my blinders on. And one of the things that my husband said, he said to me once, I really started making, he said he took a lot of knives behind his back to protect me because a lot of people were saying so many negative things about me. And so this is something that I always tell women, it doesn't matter if you have a kid, it doesn't matter if you're married, it doesn't matter your age. You only have one life to live, right? Life is not a rehearsal. This is showtime. So you just got to get up and do it because you'll regret it if years and years later down the line, you never did. And you're like, man, my life maybe could have been so much different if I just took that small leap of faith and followed my dreams,
Yeah.
and that's what I did.
Yes. And can you tell us a little bit more about how you followed this dream? Like, what kind of programs, what kind of videos may you have been watching to develop these filmmaking skills?
So one of the things, so I actually got my first start at a small boutique production company. So
Mhm.
remember I said I used to be an actor. One of my friends from high school, she was a creative director at this boutique production company, and they were looking for a lead actress for their short film. So I came in and I auditioned. I got the part on the spot. Now, it was 3 days shooting, overnight shoots. And when I was supposed to be resting, what I would do is I would go to the crew and I would say, "Hey, do you guys need help with the wires? Do you need help with this?" Like I was constantly going to the crew so that to the point that when we wrapped, the CEO said, "Hey, what are you into?" I said, "Well, I just quit my job because I want to follow my dreams." And they gave me the position of a 1 day a week, only making $15 an hour for 1 day as a runner. And so I was just there. I was like, fine, this is my opportunity. I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
And so I'm working there 1 day a week. And so they started casting for these docu-series. And they're like, Kyra, can you cast for these? What does a casting?
Right.
know, but social media, right? So I started using Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and started finding all these interesting stories for the client. Client loved the people that I was finding. Next, Kyra, can you produce these? Who is this a producer? Okay, I'll figure it out. I asked questions, YouTube TV, went to panels. Like I was just, even like platforms like what we're doing right now. Anytime that I saw a free event, I was logging in to hear from the experts. And so now I'm producing these episodes, right? And mind you, this is the first few months of me quitting my job. Next, Kyra, you're casting, you're producing, you might as well direct these because now this production company is getting these bigger projects.
Mm.
Right. So now I'm directing, casting, and producing close to 40 episodes for this here for Watching to Know, which was the platform. And what I would do though, every time I was done with an episode, I would take that footage, I would sit with that editor. Can I curse?
Yeah.
Can I curse? Okay. I would sit with that editor and I would say, Devicia, or Kevin, how did I fuck this up? How can I make this better?
The editor is the perfect person to talk to because they have to sit through so much footage. Like, I feel like they could probably be the most honest out of anybody on set.
Yes, yes. And they're like, Kyra, you didn't get establishing shots. Kyra, you didn't get this. Make sure you get this. And every single episode, I got better and better and better. And within that first year of me quitting my job, I ended up winning 2 silver tellies for my work.
Yes.
Mhm.
Stamped. That's beautiful. Okay, so I'm glad you labeled all of these roles that you were in. Can you like give us maybe a little synopsis of like what it means to be a producer and like the type of stuff you had to do to be a producer versus being a director and so on?
So, being a producer, the best way I can describe it is that you make sure that the house doesn't burn down. Like, that's the best way to describe it. I mean, being a producer, we're fixing everything. We are, any problems that arise, we're there. We have to get it done. Any special requests from the director, it's your job to make it happen. I mean, I felt like a therapist at times when people are having meltdowns. It's like I am, reaching out to people I'm crewing up basically, crewing up equipment orders, lunch orders, travel. I mean, it's everything. The producer, I always tell people being a producer is a thankless job, but just know that you feel like fucking superwoman afterwards. That's
Mhm.
the only way because the director gets all the credit. Um,
Right.
they do, they do. Being a director, I'm doing everything creative, picking out the wardrobe, picking out, how I want my interview to set up to be, my interview questions, my look and feel. Who do I want as my DP? Who do I want as my photographer? Do they stand along with my body? Like all the casting process, like so you're all creative and production is all logistics.
Mm.
And sometimes, because budgets are not budgeting like they used to, sometimes you get hired to be producer and director.
Okay. And then what about showrunner?
Showrunner, so I am not a writer. I'm trash as a writer.
Oh,
But
I won't allow that. I won't do it. No
oh
way.
no, I am. I am. But I have two amazing film sisters. Shout out to Edith Rodriguez. Shout out to Shaquela Mills. Edith is on two writers rooms for Showtime series that will be announced very soon. And Shaquela is a writer for BMF. So those are my girls. But a showrunner is similar, I guess you could say, to a producer, except for they are an integral part of the story in the writer's room. Yeah. But
Got
I'm not a writer, so I can't really go more in depth into that part.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Thanks for laying that out for folks. Since you mentioned some projects, your award-winning documentary, Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia, explores gun violence in your city and the community's efforts to combat it. What was the journey of making this film from the subject matter to bringing such an important message to the screen? And while you explain that, I'm just gonna share your website.
Oh man, my little passion project that could is what I call Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia. So Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia, it actually features my cousin Gary, who is the founder of Shoot Basketballs Not People. And
Mm,
he utilizes his gift of basketball to keep the kids off of the streets. And it really started out as a short film. Take it back a little bit. When I was producing and directing those docu-series, we actually featured Gary on the series Good People, which was only like a 5-minute piece. And this was pre-COVID. And I kept on saying, man, I really want to expand on this story, but I have imposter syndrome. And so I would never do it. Right. And I kicked myself in the behind when COVID happened because the world shut down. I had access to all this free equipment and I never did it because my imposter syndrome said no. So
mm.
as the world was growing back up, I reached out to my friends that work in the industry. I said, guys, I have this idea for this short film. You want to work with me on weekends? I don't have no money, but but it's something I really believe in. And a lot of the people that were part of Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia was actually part of that first episode of Good People with Gary. So they
Mm.
were all in. After a few days, I said to them, I said, you know what, we have something special here. I want to shut down filming. I want to see if I can raise money and create a sizzle reel. And that's what I did. I sent that sizzle reel to Edith and Shaquela, who I just mentioned. They said, do not crowdsource. Let us reach out to our connects. And I ended up meeting Mark Mims, my executive producer, who's a Grammy winning producer. He reached out to me, he said, Kyra, I know you don't know me from a can of paint, but can we jump on a call? We jumped on a call. He said, please do not crowdsource. I will get you this money. Not only did Mark Mims get me that money, he also got Allen Iverson to be my executive producer, NBA All-Star Allen Iverson.
Oh,
Yes, yes. And I decided to turn that short film into a feature film, Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia. So something I'm very, 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 very proud of.
that's so crazy. I love that like your community just poured into you like that. Like it's clear that they really believed in you and your vision.
Yeah, and I always the reason why I always when people ask me about bad things, the reason why I always start with that part because I know a lot of people they're like, "Oh, we don't have funding, we don't have money, we don't have this." But sometimes it's like you just reach out to your friends. You
Yeah,
know, a lot of times we're working on these client projects. We're not doing anything that's our creative vision. So you'll be surprised how many times people will just jump on board just to do something creative and
yeah.
something impactful. So that's why I always start out with that story.
I love that. But it's also difficult, like talking about gun violence in your city. You're from Philly, right?
Born and
Yeah.
raised.
So talking about gun violence is like a really difficult issue, and I'm sure it like touches home very hard because you're from this place. How do you tackle that with like sensitivity and even just like the weight of that when you leave set on a day like that, you know?
It was hard because one, I not only did I direct the film, I also produced the film. So
Right.
I never had an opportunity to take a hat off. Um, One of the most important things is because people said, how do people open up to you so much? One, with one of the groups that I feature, Mothers in Charge, they are mothers who actually lost their children to gun violence. And what I always say is that my first time meeting people was not with a camera. You know, I went to the Mothers in Charge meetings. I actually chatted with people. I actually, built that trust with them. Also, I'm not an implant. People trusted me because I'm born and raised in Philadelphia and I still live in Philly to this day. And like I said, it was very hard during the process. Sorry.
Mm-mm.
I even lost my own cousin
Mm.
to gun violence,
I'm so sorry to hear that.
and he was 37, right? So sorry.
No, no, don't apologize.
So,
That's so real. He's young, and it's like you're talking
mhm,
about what is really happening in your city.
right. So I am a victim of gun violence.
Hmm.
And I treated everyone that was part of the film with respect. They knew, how I grew up. They knew things that I've gone through. I didn't exploit them. I don't believe in trauma porn. And I always would tell them, I said, hey, I know you signed this release form, but if it's too heavy for you, if you say, Kyra, you know what, I don't want that in there, I will take it out. And that did happen with one of my characters, Rachel. She asked me and I took it out. So they knew that I wasn't there to exploit their stories. But I mean, it was very hard because now you're hearing the stories, right? And this is around COVID. So sometimes my mask would be soaked with my tears. So you're hearing the stories, then you're going into editing, right? And so now you're hearing the stories over and over and over and over again.
Right.
And you're like, what do you keep out? What do you keep in? And there were parts in my film that I actually purposely took out because, again, I don't believe in trauma porn. And I didn't want certain details from the mother. I didn't want the mothers to hear certain details over and over and over again. So I would purposely leave certain things out. And the biggest compliment that everyone gave me with the film was, thank you for telling our stories in such a tasteful and respectful, loving way. So,
You know, it just makes me so proud to see an example of somebody that's like, yeah, you signed this release form, but I'm a human. Like I
mhm,
respect you enough to just value how you feel about what's going to be in this project. And
yes.
I really commend you for that. I think it's beautiful for people in the audience to hear somebody stand on what they believe in that way, because
Mhm,
these spaces being dominated in a particular kind of way, they developed a culture in this like 100 years of film and TV. And it
mhm.
doesn't have to operate the same way. We don't have to exploit the people, especially not people in our own community. So I really, really value and appreciate that you made that mention. Um, and then can you please tell us, like, how do you take care of yourself after that? Like, what do you do?
I
How
haven't.
that's so real.
I haven't. God, thank God for my husband. I mean, there were times that he would say, "You gotta eat, Kyra," or there were times that I would break down, I would just cry. I guess because I was releasing all that trauma, because I was holding it all in, because I had to be strong for everybody in this process. But I haven't taken care of myself, and I keep saying it. I need to go to therapy. I need to really get this out. And you know what? I'm tired of talking about it. I am. That's my goal, is to put myself into therapy, because I am still dealing with a lot of the trauma of the stories that I heard. Because then also you think that once you're done, once the film is out, that's it, right? No, I went through the film festival circuit. We premiered at the American Black Film Festival. We was in LA, New York, the Bay Area, Virginia. And so after you show the film, what happens? Then people are coming to you with their own trauma stories. And then
Mm.
you're taking that in. And when my husband wasn't with me during the film festival circuit, there would be times I would go to my hotel room and I would just burst out crying because of the stories that I heard.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
such a
hard.
it's an interesting place to be in when you create vulnerable work. Naturally, it evokes vulnerability in other people.
Mhm,
But there's like, I don't know, there's something to be done about that line where it's like, I appreciate that you were moved, but ooh, like now I have to carry your heavy stories and my heavy stories.
mhm,
So I don't know. I think there's a lot more to talk about with that and like how we can treat creatives and consumers. Like there's
mhm.
something we got to do with that relationship there. But
Yeah.
I'm glad you
Well,
mentioned that you premiered at the film festival.
yes,
Mhm.
ABFF.
ABFF, the American Black Film Festival. Could you tell us about the process of submitting films?
Oh man, submitting films. First of all, it's expensive.
Yeah, they do not tell you that. It costs.
Money. Oh my God, it's expensive as hell. I
Yeah.
mean, and then you have to have, thank God for my EP, Mark Mills. I mean, because he really put in, he paid for our posters, he paid for a lot of those, because when you're submitting to these film festivals, they want a poster, they want a trailer, um, they want your filmmaker statement, they want your log line, they want so many assets from you. Then another thing that people don't know that was a sticker shock for me, when you're premiering at these film festivals, a lot of times they're in the old school theaters and you need a DCP, which is a digital cinema projector. And it's expensive. And this was with the film festival discount. It was $5 a minute. My film was 69 minutes. So
Ooh,
I had, yes,
I didn't know they were charging by the minute.
yes. That thing was like, it was like what, it was $1,134. I remember yes,
That's
for
just one cost.
one cause. And that was stressful, because that's a lot of money. So these are the things that people don't tell you. And now, like, a lot of these film festivals, they don't pay for your lodging, they don't pay for your plane tickets, so you're putting out so much money in hopes that someone will pick up your project.
Mm.
Um, But I will say that one of the most beautiful things that happened at one of the film festivals, shout out to the Maker Film Festival in the Bay Area, after seeing the film, and after watching my Q&A, someone reached out and they sent my cousin Gary a $10,000 anonymous donation for his program.
Wow,
Yes.
yes.
And since the film comes out, he has gotten over $100,000 in grants and donations because the film was also about, you know, committing to the smaller nonprofits that are boots on the ground every day doing the work, but they're not the ones that's getting the money
Right.
versus the bigger organizations that's only in our communities once every quarter and they're getting all the big bucks and they're only there for a photo op and then they disappear into the next quarter. So it's something I'm very proud of when bad things happen in Philadelphia.
Hey, congratulations. Look at all these blessings just raining down from everybody that worked on it. But you talked about getting picked up. Prime Video has acquired the film, right?
It started out, it's on Prime Video, to rent it or buy it, but it was actually Fox Soul that
Oh,
acquired. Mhm.
yes,
Yes,
Foxo. Yes.
yes,
Oh my God. Can you
yes.
tell us about that process? Like, what does it look like to have your film acquired? How can you get it to where like multiple platforms are even hosting it? Like, what's that process?
Yeah, so multiple platforms have reached out to me to acquire my film. Some of the platforms I said no to because I won't say who it was because I can't. Don't want
Valid,
to blackball
valid.
myself. But like for example, I just believe in being an open book about this process and not gatekeeping. Um, one of the platforms, they reached out to me and they gave me a $15,000 deal, but they were offering me a 3-year exclusive agreement, which
Oh,
meant that I didn't own my film for 3 years. It's only $15,000. And anywhere that I wanted to showcase my film, whether it was in schools, wherever, I would have to ask them for permission back. No.
yeah.
Um, Also, a lot of these platforms, when I would be in meetings, no one looked like me, you know? No
Mhm.
one looked like me. There wasn't any, I didn't feel really like compassion about the subject matter. So when I came to Fox Soul, all the higher ups, everyone looked like me, everyone, they understood what I was trying to do. And shout out to Fox Soul because they have been incredibly supportive. They had a Foxhole talk back on the Instagram Live. They did so many things to be supportive of this project. And also, if you go on Foxhole, it streams every day. And you can also watch it live on DirecTV, Samsung TV,
Mm.
YouTube TV on the Foxhole network Saturdays and Sundays. So it was a blessing. And I'll be with Foxhole for a whole year, non-exclusive agreement. So I was able to travel everywhere with it as well.
That's so beautiful. We're gonna see if we can drop some of those links in the chat so y'all can just have it straight direct. But with that, like you mentioned, is a very white male dominated industry. And it feels like there's been a bit of a renaissance happening for the past couple years where a lot more of us are in the industry and Black women in particular are getting into the industry. But how did you and do you navigate still being surrounded and having the culture of a white male dominated field?
Oh, it's hard. It gets very hard. I mean, there have been times that I've been on sets and people didn't realize that I was the producer. They would mistake me as the PA until I opened up my mouth during our safety meeting.
Mm-hmm.
People would talk down to me and I would have to puff up my chest a little bit. I've actually had to fire crew members for being disrespectful, not to me, but to my production assistants. I have a no asshole policy on my sets. So if you're rude to even my PA, you're out of here. I will find someone to replace you. But it's really hard because I found myself, I always have to work 1,000 times harder just to get in the same room, you know.
Yeah.
I've had jobs that I was more than qualified for, and I've been overlooked and it's been given to a white man. Or I won't be the director of that project, but they're like, Kyra, you can be the producer. So basically, you want me to do all the work for you, and that's it, and I don't get any credit. I've even had my work stolen from me, or
Really?
my inspiration stolen from me, from white men. So it's been very, very, very hard. But I never gave up ever. And when I'm producing, when I'm crewing up on sets, I always say my sets look like the United Colors of Benetton, because I have everybody up in there.
Okay.
Okay. You a woman and you a gaffer, I'ma hire you over that male gaffer. And another thing, I empower my women, I empower my non-binary community. If they tell me their rate, I have one crew member, a first AC, and she told me her rate. And I said, that's not your rate. I said, I'm hiring men that are charging 850 to be
Yeah.
a first AC. I will not be paying you $600. Your new rate going forward is $800 to $850.
Yeah.
So it's like you empower people. That's my job as a producer. So that way women don't have to go through what I went through, at least not on my sets.
That part. I love that. I'm so glad. Like, I can't wait to work on one of your sets because you really have like you have the foundation for how to build really beautiful and like loving and warm and still getting the work done type of energy on a set, which I feel very lucky in my own work. I've been able to work on a lot of women-led and Black women-led sets, and I feel like that's the natural vibe. Like it's always a good time when we are in control of curating an energy and people that create quality work. So I really appreciate that, like, I'm getting to talk to you about how you run your sets. Um, what advice would you give to people who might not be in a producer or director role on how to navigate these situations for themselves? Like, for instance, if they're the gaffer or the grip or PA even, like what can they do to just take up more space for themselves?
You talk to your producer. People think the director's in charge. No, they're not. Producer, we're in charge. Like for example, one of the things that I love to do with my production assistants, I like to ask them like, what do you really want to do? Right? Like, I know you don't want to be a PA forever. Like, what is your goal? So if they want to be a gaffer, I will go to that head of department and I will say to them, like, hey, when such and such is done with their task for me, do you mind if they shadow you in there? Because this is what they really want to do.
Nice.
So it's speak up, you got to speak up. When I wanted to be a producer, I spoke up. I said, hey, this is what I really want to do. So if there's any opportunities, even if it's small, can I just like shadow you? Can I be in a meeting? Can I just listen in on that meeting? Can I come to that tech scout, so I can learn during that tech scout? You gotta speak up and talk to your producers, because the producers are the ones that really can help you get into that position.
Nice. Okay, thank you for that. We have a question in the chat from Anonymous who says, what other work or projects do you do to make money in order to make documentaries? They're
Uh,
like, documentaries don't make the bread.
no, documentaries don't make the bread. But I will say that once I made that Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia, and because it was successful, people have been trusting me with their money. So that is a blessing. I am doing 2 documentaries, but one of the things that I do, commercial projects. That's my bread and butter. And also, don't sleep on corporate projects, okay? Corporate projects are not the most exciting projects, but they will keep you fed. I mean, I work on corporate projects all the time. And the thing is that working on these corporate projects or working on commercial projects, that's really how you really build your film community as well. It goes back to what I said in the beginning when I was asking people to help me out with Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia. You're so used to working on client projects, whether it's corporate or commercial, that you'd be surprised at how much people will want to really go and help you with your documentary or with your narrative story. So yeah, commercial and corporate projects, that's my bread and butter.
Okay,
Oh,
perfect.
it's my real.
Yeah. We're just speaking of that, like What does a typical day on set for you look like? And does that differ from something like a corporate project versus you doing a documentary?
So it depends. So if I am producing, I am there typically an hour before everyone else. I am setting up the production office. I am making sure that food is there. I'm getting us all ready for the day. And then if it's a smaller set, I'm also playing the role as a first AD for the director when I don't have a big set. And I'm just, making sure that there aren't any fires. And if there are fires, I'm there to blow them out. So that way the director doesn't know what's going on. And, they can continue on with their creative process. If I'm the director, I typically still come in early just because once you're a producer, you're always a producer. Another reason why I come in early also is because as a director, I love to greet every single crew member on set. I like to say, hi, how are you? Thank you for coming on set. I can't wait to work for you. I like to start my day off with a lot of niceness, because sometimes things can get a little spicy on set. So I want to start the day off right. And then, yeah, for a corporate project, it's a lot more business like because you're working in offices and everything. So you have to be aware of your surroundings. You can't be as loud. Um, a lot of times your hair and makeup room is in like a cubicle. So and then you're also working in like these big buildings. So your loading and setup takes a lot longer. And on a documentary, it's more of a family vibe for me. I tend to have very small crews on my documentary because it's a more intimate space.
Yeah.
I don't like interviewing I don't like seeing subjects, my characters or talent. I don't like interviewing my talents where there's so many people around that they don't feel like, they can be open. So I'm very much more flexible on a documentary set than I am on a corporate set.
Got you. Could you tell us a little bit about maybe some unspoken rules when you're on these sets, like maybe in the film industry at large?
Yes. So you don't say cut if you're not the director.
True. Both of
that
you
actually
getting excited.
that actually happened on one of the sets. Oh my God, this production assistant yelled cut, and we were just like, what are you doing? You don't do that. Um, Another thing is basic, like really staying in your department. Don't step on people's toes. Um, One of my rules that I have is I always like to ask people their pronouns. Because this is the world that we're living in, and I just want to make sure that I'm being respectful of their pronouns. What else? What else? What else? What else do I do? I mean, unspoken rules. Just being respectful, knowing your lane, not being rude. This is not rocket science. We're all here to create art. We're all here to find the heart in the story, whether it's a corporate project, a commercial project, or a documentary. Oh, and keep your crew fed. No pizza.
Come
Good
on, exactly.
Good meals.
You gotta take care of your crew.
Take care of your crew. Good meals. And if you're going to overtime, I never buy my crew pizza when I'm going to overtime for the third meal. I like to boost morale. So a lot of times I buy them Shake Shack, something fun.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So those are and it's so funny when you ask me this because you do it every day that you're not even really thinking about it.
Yeah. I want to jump in the chat real quick because Tashina says, how do you make time for video and film projects if you work a 9 to 5? And how long did it take you to start making films as a career?
So if you're working a 9 to 5, what I did, I worked on the weekends. I worked on my film Saturdays and Sundays. Holidays, like for example, 4th of July is coming up. I would not be at a barbecue. I'd be working on my film,
Yeah.
So I would take whatever time that I could. I would even work after I got off from work. And as far as how long, what was the other question? How long did it take me?
Yeah. How long did it take you to start making films full time?
Full time. So I took that leap of faith. So I was already working at a production company 1 day a week. And because I guess when you start walking in your purpose, things start happening for you. So it wasn't that long. It maybe have been maybe 3 months that they had brought me in as a full answer, which I think was illegal because ain't no such thing as a full answer. But but I was there 40 hours a week. So it was a very, very quick transition for me. Very quick, very quick.
And that makes me think about imposter syndrome, which is another question in the chat. But to Sheena's question, I think sometimes we feel imposter syndrome because we can only commit to a weekend during like different phases of our life, where it's like, I can't really call myself a producer if I can only produce 2 days out of the week.
You can.
Right. And it's not real. It's like the moment you do this job, that is what you are. You're going for it. So like Kyra said, just make time wherever you have it, and eventually you'll be full time.
And I still have imposter syndrome. I still struggle to this day. I was just filming was it 3 weeks ago? 3 or 2 weeks ago in Detroit with the Terrence J. And like, I was stressed. I was stressed. I kept on saying, I don't belong here. I mean, I even went into the bathroom and I threw up because I was so nervous. And I was just like, why am I here? How did I get chosen for this project? Like, so I still suffer from imposter syndrome. I mean, even when y'all reached out to me, I was like, well, I'm not a photographer. Y'all sure y'all want me on this? Like, like I I have horrible, horrible imposter syndrome. I'm better at giving other people advice when I need to be giving my own self that advice. I always second guess myself and I need to believe in myself more. So imposter syndrome is very real because if you think about it, I've only been in this business for 5.5 years, right? And so you're going on sets where people have been in the business for 10 plus years. You can't help but to think, why am I here? So it's normal. And you are a producer, whether you work a 9 to 5 or not. I know a phenomenal, she quit producing and I want her to get back into it. But Zaina, she lives in Chicago. She had a 9 to 5 and she is a bomb producer, made award-winning films while still working a 9 to 5. I even know phenomenal actors and voice actors that have a 9 to 5 and make good money being an actor, even though they have that 9 to 5. So don't matter. You still got to pay your bills. Everybody's journey is different.
Speaking of voice acting, I feel like you would make a really great voice actor. You kind of remind me of Cree Summer.
No, my Philly accent too strong.
But before we move on entirely from imposter syndrome, Brittany in the chat says, you spoke earlier about it. How have you grown to trust your creative direction or vision from starting at the boutique creative agency until now? And to add on that, I want to say like how you're still in it and you still trying to grow that trust. But I think it's still very valuable to see that, like how you said, you are still growing the trust and you still suffer from imposter syndrome sometimes. And if you could just let us know how you even got to where you are right now.
Oh man. I have amazing community around me. That when I am doubting my creative vision, when I'm doubting anything, I can reach out to them and say, how does this look? Is this trash? Is it this? Is that? They're like, Kyra, you're tripping. Like, you got to get out of your head. So I would say it's really my community that helps me trust my gut more. It's something that I'm still working hard at. Like I said, with the whole Terrence J thing, and because it's for a big Chevrolet campaign. And I'm like, I've never filmed cars. The only cars I filmed was the lowriders on a docu-series. Like, but I surrounded myself with the best of the best. I mean, I had an amazing first AD. Shout out to Kenton and BK. But there go Terry. Oh, you're quick.
And you looking fly on set. Yeah.
But no, it was one of the things that you have to constantly tell yourself that you're going through these bids. you're presenting your creative vision to these clients, you know, they wouldn't choose you if you weren't right for the project. So you're obviously doing something right. So you just have to trust your gut. And if you don't get that project, that just means that that project wasn't meant for you. It doesn't mean that your work wasn't great. It just means that that's not the direction that campaign or that client or that agency wanted to go through. And that's something that I had to learn. And I'm still learning because, we're creatives, we're sensitive about our shit, right? So just got to keep it, say in your head, I'm enough, I belong here, I belong here. So
And you look so happy on set. Like
thank you.
I would never think you were struggling to believe
Oh,
that.
I threw up that day in the morning. threw
But I
up.
think one important thing that you're saying is like you have to do it anyway. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to be scared and in the middle of developing a better relationship with yourself and your trust and your vision. But the only way to do that, or I shouldn't say only way, but one of the ways to do that is to keep going
Yeah,
to jobs, keep showing up. If you gotta go have a panic attack in the bathroom real quick, go do that and
yeah.
come back to set.
And don't let your imposter syndrome stop you from opportunities because I will be very honest. I almost didn't submit for that Chevrolet job. They reached with Terrence J. They reached out to me, and another project reached out to me too. The other project, I was like, oh, I know I can do this.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, I really want to try for this Chevrolet job. I really want this is my opportunity to be a director on on a major campaign and not be a producer for that major campaign. And my community, they were like, Kyra, try. And so I created my creative deck. I submitted to the client. I was in a triple bid with two other directors. And I was like, you know what? If I don't get this job, at least I tried. At least I tried. I didn't want to take the quick buck, the quick cash.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy. I'm so happy that I took that leap of faith because I ended up being awarded the job. So very proud of it. Very, very proud of it.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what it takes to be a good producer? Like, I love how you shouted out Zaina earlier, where you're like, she's an impeccable producer. How do you know that you're a good producer?
You anticipate the unexpected.
Mm.
I mean, that's your job. You anticipate the unexpected. Um, you're on you anticipate your director's need. And you prepare for everything. Your pre-production process is so important. You want to make sure that pre-production is so buttoned up so that by the time production happens and you're on set, you're ready to fight whatever problems might arise because you already made sure that the basic fundamentals were right there and they were locked in. And also being a great producer, know your gear, know equipment. You don't have to know all the ins and outs, like the really small techie details, but you want to be able to have a general communication with your G&E department, your grip and electric department. You want to be able to understand when your DP and director are talking about lenses, you know exactly what type of lenses they're talking about. So you can tell them right off the bat, hey, we don't have the budget for these lenses, but you know what about the Cook lenses? What about we do this? You want to be able to have those conversations. So and then again, creating a safe and collaborative space for your creatives. I think that's very, very, very important. Because if you're not, yes, because if you're not creating a safe space for your creatives, then you're walking on eggshells, you right? And so how can they take a project that was already going to be bomb to something that's going to be bomb as fuck, right?
Right.
You can't do that if you're walking on eggshells. So that is actually my number one rule, creating a safe and collaborative environment for my creatives. And I pride myself on that. I really, really do.
Yeah.
Actually, one of your members took these photos, by the way. Shout
Oh,
out to Victoria Wilcox if she's listening in. Yeah, yeah.
hey, Torian Studios.
Yep, Torian Studios. Yes,
Oh,
Victoria Wilcox. Yes. And another one of your members who took my headshot that was on the thing. Shout out to Janelle Hall Reagan. She's another one of your members. So I just wanted to shout them out. Wanted to shout them out.
oh, everywhere.
Yeah.
That's so,
Yeah. So
so beautiful. She captured you in the set really wonderfully.
And she's actually Victoria Wilcox. She is at Temple. I believe she's going to be a senior this year. She is my production assistant, but she is an amazing photographer. And she is an emerging filmmaker herself. So because I know she loves photography, I always tell her, if you want to bring your camera on set, you can, no problem.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Look at you fostering these safe spaces. We love it.
Mhm.
So we only have 10 minutes left, and that's okay. I wanted to wrap up our day with talking about the 2023 Sundance Producer Fellowship. You were a fellow, right?
I am still a
You're
fellow.
still a fellow? Yeah. Congratulations. Can you tell us like how this came about, how you found out about it? How's the experience been?
Oh man, I almost didn't apply because of imposter syndrome again, right? That's my problem. I told you, I
But you
told
did.
I did. And this is the first and only fellowship I've ever applied to. Um, so my film sister Edith, who I spoke about earlier, she has this amazing script called Southside Girls about two Latina girls growing up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, right? And you're like, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was like, Edith, what? And she was like, no, there's a huge Puerto Rican population in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And she had this script had got her into Gotham Labs. It got her into the Paramount Writers Fellowship. It got her as a finalist in the Nichols. Um, you know what I'm trying to say, their whole competition. And
Mhm.
so the I mean, Sundance had this producers fellowship application out for months. And I wait until 2 months before the application is due to call Edith. And I said, hey Edith, I know, and I'm talking just like this. Like,
Right.
hey, like, hey Edith, I know I'm a documentary filmmaker and I'm commercial and and I haven't really been in the narrative space, but could I submit your script for Southside Girls? I really want to be your producer.
Mhm.
She yelled at me, not because she didn't want me to do it, because it took me so long to ask her.
Yeah.
Yes, and she said, "Absolutely." And remember, again, I said I'm not. I'm a trash writer, but she's a phenomenal writer. So what she did was she lives in LA, and what she would do for each interview question that I had, she told me to put what I wanted to say in bullet points, and then she would help form it together for me. And one of the most amazing things about that was that she said that when she read my bullet points, she knew I was the perfect producer for this story for her script. And
Ah.
so we get the application together, and imposter syndrome, like, no, I can't, no. And so I ended up submitting it when I was on an Amtrak train, headed to a scout to New York. I text my director and my DP, I'm turning off my phone, guys. I'm submitting to the Sundance Fellowship. Wish me luck. And so I said to myself, at least I did it, right? Next thing 2 months later, you made it to the next round. I'm like, what? So more interview questions. Edith had to submit our director, one of her short films, and I submitted Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia because not only did I direct it, but I produced it. We
Mm.
submitted a pitch deck. So we're like, oh, at least we made it to the semifinals.
Right.
2 months later, you made it to the finals. What? So I'm like, oh my God, I'm like stressed. I had to do 2 interviews, one with the Sundance board, and
Okay.
then the other with one of the previous fellows. And I mean, I was nervous. They recorded it. I didn't know that close to 30 people saw my interview. I was stumbling, right. I was stumbling all over my words. I even teared up. I was like, oh my God, I was like, even if I don't get picked, like, thank you for even seeing me. I even wrote them an email and I said, hey, Obviously I got off the call and I was like, man, I wish I would have said this and I wish I would have said that and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, you know what? I probably fucked up, but at least I made it to the finals. I could put that in my Instagram finalist.
Right.
And I found out that I made it. I found out that I got into the fellowship, and it's been an amazing, amazing journey. I am in a Google chat with every single producer that is going through this Sundance Fellowship for the past 40 years. It's just been a whirlwind. I'm blessed. That's all I can say. I'm just blessed. I'm really, really blessed.
Truly. I mean, it's radiating off of you. And I love to have you as an example of somebody who is really making it happen and making shit shake. And I'm glad that we all do here on this live and anybody that watches this in the future. Um, we have another question in the chat from Tashina that says, how did you know you wanted to be a producer instead of any of the other roles that you may have filled before?
Oh man, because I feel like a superwoman. Um, I feel like a superwoman. I mean, I made it happen. I made it happen. That's how I knew. Being part of the process from from the very beginning to the very end, and you can look back and you say, I was the person behind all of this shit. You
Yeah.
know, I made this happen. It feels good. It feels good, you just feel like a boss.
So it sounds like you got to find a thing that makes you feel like a superwoman.
You
If
do,
that's
because
chops, maybe that's gapping, you know?
right, because it's not all sunshines and butterflies and rainbows. Like I have the hardest days sometimes being a producer. I have the hardest days sometimes directing, you know, but I've never not wanted to get up the next day and not do it again. And that's how I know I'm in the right field. I
Yeah.
get excited when I wake up. I
Yeah.
get excited that I'm creating stories. I get excited, when people watch what we made and it makes them shine, and makes them brighten up. Like, you're telling people stories. How can you not be happy about that? We're blessed. We're blessed.
I'm gonna need you to tell all of that to your imposter syndrome. I'm gonna
I know. I
need
told you I'm good. I'm better at giving advice to other people than myself.
girl.
Told you.
See, we've been doing journal prompts all weekend, and that's one right there. What does your imposter syndrome need to hear from you? That.
Right. Right.
We have Cortina in the chat that says, what's some organizations or communities that you would recommend for someone getting back into film? And I think they might mean like in terms of resources, like how do they find out how to get back in?
It depends on what city you're in.
Right.
Um, so for example, in Philly, we have Philly Rough Cuts. We have Philly Cam. We have PWIF, which is just like, what is it? Philadelphia Women in Film Television, I think that's what it's called. So definitely like going on I mean, I hate Facebook, but Facebook, I mean, they have great groups on
Yeah, they
Facebook.
do
You
for
look
film.
up yeah, I mean, I use Facebook sometimes to crew up when I'm crewing up in a city that I've never filmed in. So looking up your local groups. And also like, for example, if you're in documentaries, like a resource that I love is called Brown Girls Doc Mafia. Love Brown Girls Doc Mafia. They are an amazing, amazing resource. They are for women and non-binary. So Brown Girls Doc Mafia, what's another one? Black Film and TV. It's another great resource. Obviously Black women photographers, that's another great resource. There's so many organizations out there that if you just take one good like quick Google, you'll be surprised at all the different resources that will pop up. Everything is digital now, right? So you just gotta start digging. That's what I did.
Okay, that's perfect. We're gonna wrap it up there, but I did just drop a link in the chat for folks. And then as a reminder, all of these are recorded. So in case you missed anything Kyra said, once these are uploaded to YouTube, you can go back and find all the resources we weren't able to drop into this chat. But Kyra, thank you so, so much. It's been such a blessing speaking to you. You are such a light. I love your energy. Thank you so much for all this insight.
Thank you, and everyone. I can't see y'all, but I just want to say, remember, life is not a rehearsal. This is showtime. Do not give up on your dreams. I started when I was 34 years old, so you can do it. Put your blinders on, fuck those naysayers, and just go out and do it. Y'all got this. And that's it. That's all I
Come on. I need you speaking to me every morning. Just Kyra, thank you so much. And like I mentioned before, these educational resources we have are free all the time. That's the kind of work we like to do here at Black Women Photographers. Thank you for being a part of our community. We have a little break in between our last speaker for day 3 of this Black Women Photographers Summit. So we'll see you guys soon. But before we leave, do you mind if I take a screenshot?
got. No, I don't mind.
Okay, I'm gonna do it while we say bye.
Okay.
Thanks again, y'all. Bye.